I was just sitting here just thinking, and I was trying to figure out when was it that the last Democratic president who ran for re-election failed to get reelected. And, you can go way back. Most of your Democratic Party presidents have been successful in re-election except one in your and my lifetime. Now, I'm 68, and you may be a little bit older, you may be a lot younger, don't know. But there's only one Democratic president who was not re-elected for a second term. Does anybody want to take a venture? Ritchie, you're a big Democratic supporter. You know who it is? He's gone to sleep on us. Or he's answering the phones. But so I shouldn't put him on a spot like that. But he would know. Ritchie would know. I guarantee you that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Del.
No, I was going to say, you would probably know which Democratic president has not gotten reelected for a second term.
Which Democratic president? Well,
right.
Obviously Jimmy Carter would be the last.
There you go.
Was that the one?
That's it. I'm trying to find out what other Democratic president didn't get elected, and I can't find any.
What other Democratic president? I'm thinking now off the top.
What was Grover Cleveland? What was Grover Cleveland? He was he a Republican or a Democrat?
I think he was a Republican.
Okay, but he got reelected twice. But he ran for reelection and he lost. And then, like 4 years later, he got reelected again. I
got a list here. I was trying to think off the top of my head. So, all right, let's see. Let's go back here. Bear with me. All right, Barack Obama is one. Yeah, he's not going to be a one-term, as we know. Jimmy Carter, as you said, was a one-term Democratic president.
Right.
Now, let me ask you this: do you want to count LBJ? Because LBJ technically was a one-term. He only completed one of his own terms.
Right. Yeah. He didn't. After
he opted not to run, so he didn't lose an election either.
Right. I think he was going to run up until the time Bobby Kennedy announced that he wanted to run for president,
right.
And LBJ thought, "I'm getting out of this dog and pony show," because it was, I mean, if you weren't alive to see it at the time, but see, Vietnam was the hottest issue in the news night after night after night. And, and Dan Rather in the jungles and Walter Cronkite anchoring the news. And it looked like the world was coming to an end at any time. And once Bobby Kennedy started coming out to run for president and was going to get us out of Vietnam, everybody just was in awe. Up till that point, the only other candidate who had talked about getting out of Vietnam was Eugene McCarthy, and he was going pretty good. And then Bobby announced, and once Bobby announced, Eugene McCarthy was forgotten, and that was it. And that's when LBJ pulled the plug on it, because I've done the studying on the Kennedy family, and that's exactly what happened. And, of course, LBJ could not stand Bobby Kennedy. He hated him.
I don't think he liked any of the Kennedys. And Roosevelt and Truman were both Democrats who served multiple terms. Woodrow Wilson served 2 terms. All right, Grover Cleveland. Wow, I was wrong. Grover Cleveland was a Democrat. He was the 22nd and 24th president.
So that's
he did lose one election.
That's the last time, then, that a Democratic president failed to get reelected. You figure some of them didn't want to run.
Right.
But Grover Cleveland is the last Democratic president who did not get reelected for a second term.
He lost to Ben Harrison in 1832 was the election.
Okay. Going back. That's even before Ritchie's time. I don't know about Blanche. Blanche was And there's a rumor that Blanche was dating Grover Cleveland at one
And you know
time.
what's interesting about Benjamin Harrison also? I think, and let me click on him just to double check because I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think he was also Benjamin Harrison was the last president to ever be elected president directly from the House. It might have been Harrison. I know there was one guy who did it. I know I'm going to be wrong here.
Yeah. Oh,
I was wrong, but all right, so there you go.
And then there's another president. Doing a little history here today, folks. There's another president who, once he left the White House, did not go into retirement. He didn't go back to his hometown or anything else. He stayed in Washington and accepted an appointment and did that. And that
I know the answer. Are you asking me, or are you
go
getting
ahead.
to it? I know
Go
it.
ahead.
It's William Taft was the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court.
Got it.
Oh,
Yeah.
boom, baby!
Toss the guy a bone.
Boom! Give me that prize money over at Sirius.
William Howard Taft of Ohio, who's famous for getting into the bathtub, and they had to call in about 3 or 4 people to pull him out of the tub. He got stuck. So they put in bigger bathtubs for Mr. President William Howard Taft.
He was also the first president to throw out a first pitch at a baseball game, Taft, wasn't he?
Uh-huh. I think so. Now, was that the old Washington Senators or what?
Yeah, yes, it was. I don't know the year it was that he did it, but I know he was the first one to throw out the first pitch.
Now, how's the Nationals doing? Speaking of baseball, you got the Nationals in Washington. Washington went for many years without a baseball team. So how are the Nationals doing? Are they pulling crowds? Or?
Well, you know what? They're not pulling crowds, and here's why I think they're not pulling crowds. Washington, D.C. is a very unique city, Dale, in the sense that most people who live there, Washington's a revolving door, because of everybody who comes in from the outside. So I think it's really hard for a city like D.C. to get a solid, a lifetime fan base for one particular team. I mean, I know the Redskins are the exception, but the Nats, they're not drawing really well. Maybe half the stadium is full each night, and so. But the Nats of late are actually playing pretty well.
Well, hey, that's better than what they're doing in Tampa.
Well, you know what?
At Tropicana Field, I mean, you can go in there and
dump.
I've never been in there, but I've seen some of the games on TV, and they'll pan around, and boy, oh boy, there's a bunch of empty seats, and then you'll see about 500-600 people. They just cluster them all together in one place down around the first or third base line. And that's it.
That's by far the worst baseball stadium in baseball. By far. I mean, it's ugly looking. They got these catwalks, Dale. Have you ever been in there? You've never been in there in Tropicana Field, right? No. But they got these catwalks that are above the field that are actually in play. So a guy will hit the ball, it'll bounce and rattle off these off these catwalks, and you got to try to figure out, all right, where was the guy gonna be had it not got interfered with? It's a real pain. It's an ugly stadium.
I guess in a case like that, what do they call it? A ground rule double?
What they do is it's a ground rule double, and then I believe and I think it could be a triple also. I think Tropicana Field may be the only field that has a ground rule triple, whereas if the ball gets locked around up there, it's up to the umpire's discretion to place the runner at the base.
I wonder if they ever have a situation, because I really don't watch baseball in Tampa. I mean, moving to Tampa turned me off on baseball quicker than anything. But I just wonder if the ball were to hit the catwalk and fall down and somebody caught it.
That's been done. I've seen that. That is not an out. It's not an out. It's not. Once it hits the catwalk, the ball's out of play, and it's a ground rule double. That's
sort of like getting in the ivy at Wrigley Field. Once it hits an ivy. That's it.
Interesting thing about that, it's funny you mentioned the ivy. I was watching the game of the week. The Yankees last weekend, I think it was, they were in Wrigley Field playing the Cubs. And I forget who was telling the story, but he was an ex-Cub. And he was telling the story about when he played the outfield, there would be guys who would keep extra balls in the ivy. Yeah, they'd keep extra balls in the ivy and then, kind of try to sneak the ball in. Like if it just scooted over the fence, they'd grab the spare ball and throw it in as if it were like a double or something. And whoever it was who was saying this said he went on a tour over the past couple of years of Wrigley Field. And he said just for the hell of it, he kind of poked his hand around through the ivy. And sure enough, to this day, he said there were still balls in there.
Yeah, because you reach up there to catch the ball, and
the ball goes over the fence. You grab the spare and pretend
you grab
off.
the spare and get the guy with a double. I mean, that's it.
And the funnier part about that whole story, Dale, is despite the fact that the Cubs are cheaters, they still can't win a World Series in 100 years.
Oh, well, maybe they're listening to us in Chicago, and somebody will call the Cubs tonight and tell them we were talking about them.
Yeah, check the ivy, guys.
Good afternoon. 20 past the hour with the Truckin Bozo. Our number here is 888-876-2336, and we'll go to the phones right after this here on Sirius XM 106.